My name is Klemens. I am an indie developer from Graz in Austria, and I've been doing this for quite a while now. I've been an indie developer for 11 years, and I made many projects over those 11 years. But for most of my career, I was actually full-time employed at some companies and did only my indie development on the side. Until last year, when I finally made my jump to go full indie to focus on one particular project. And that project was Art of Fauna. And doing this jump to really focus on my own projects was one of the best decisions that I ever did, because just like you just heard, Art of Fauna last year ended up winning the Apple Design Award, and then later last year also won the App Store Award in Cultural Impact. And while you might think that winning either one of those two awards was the favorite moment in my professional career, my actual favorite moment, which was a much smaller moment, a much more personal moment, that also happened last year, and I want to start my presentation by sharing this moment with you. This moment happened to me here at Apple Park during WWDC 2025. You always get the chance at WWDC to speak to engineers, ask them about your problems that you have with your app over the year, and get some real answers without them having a chance to run away from you. And I was sitting down with somebody from the SwiftUI team because SwiftUI was not behaving as I thought it should. And while I was sitting there, somebody came to me and tapped on my shoulder. I turned around, have never seen their face before, but they just pulled out their phone and showed the phone to me. And their phone said, "Hey, are you Klemens?" I was a little bit confused about that, but I just nodded. They turned away from me, typed something in their phone, and showed it to me again. And then the phone said, "Thank you so much for everything you do for accessibility. Me and my team at Apple appreciate how much you care." And he grabbed into his pocket, pulled out this little accessibility pin, gave that accessibility pin to me, looked me in the eyes, and then just walked away. And I couldn't say anything to them because I was just so stunned by this little act of kindness, especially coming from somebody from Apple, from the accessibility team, and showing me, this appreciation and this little moment of kindness was so special to me. Even though it seems small, it really meant the world to me. And the person was really right. I care. I care a lot. I care about making beautiful apps, making fun experiences, making a great user interface. But I also care a lot about tiny, stupid details. Like in Pocket Shelf, we have this little card that pops up at the end of the onboarding, and it has absolutely no functional meaning other than being fun, that you can draw anything on there, like a smiley or stuff like that. There's no sensible meaning in doing something like that, but it's just fun, and I love doing stuff like that. But I also care a lot about my users. And with my users, I mean all of my users, no matter which assistive technology they are using. So I thought I'm going to take this moment, this presentation, to talk a little bit more about caring and how it made Art of Fauna the great app that it became and the success that it became. If you have never heard about Art of Fauna, let's take a quick moment to show to you what the app is all about. So if you have ever played a jigsaw puzzle, then you basically get the gist. So you have some beautiful illustration, and you have to put the picture back together again. And it's a very, very simple concept, but it just feels very nice. You also have some calming nature sounds in the background, and at the end, if you have solved the puzzle correctly, you get this little text with a description about the animal before you can pass on to the next puzzle. So it's a very simple concept, but it's just super fun and super calming. This starts out very, very easy. It gets a little bit harder later on. And then if you're a puzzle head, you can also go do something like this if you really want to. All of those illustrations are, I think, very beautiful, but I get often the questions where I got those presentations. Many people think I drew them myself, and I didn't, because if I would draw them myself, they would more look like this. But they are also not generated with an AI or anything like that. All of those illustrations are from real historical books from the 18th and 19th century. They were made for scientific research in the 18th and 19th century, and the people who made those books are long gone, so they are now publicly available. Thanks to a service called the Biodiversity Heritage Library, they scan in those old books and make them available for free to everybody. And when I first saw those images, I was just so stunned that I knew I need to do something with them. But since I get all of those images for free, I thought I need to do something to give something back. So a portion of every purchase of Art of Fauna supports wildlife conservation. Last year, I donated over 10,000 euros to different wildlife organizations, split between 4 organizations. And 2 of them actually told me what they did with the money. One of them said that they bought 1,250 square meters of forest in the Austrian Alps and put it under protection, the Naturschutzbund Steiermark. And the other organization used part of my money to buy a bigger corridor in Costa Rica and put a huge part of land of rainforest under protection. And if you do the maths, Art of Fauna contributed to 3,500 square meters of that land. And that's not CO2 offsetting or some of that bullshit. It's real groundwork by real amazing people who care about our environment. And that is basically Art of Fauna. But if you know anything about my work, then you know one piece is missing, and this is accessibility. I care a lot about accessibility. I do a lot of work in accessibility. And Apple even made an interview last year with me during Global Accessibility Awareness Day, where they talked about how I build my apps and how I make sure that they are accessible. And when I have a new idea, and I usually have a lot of ideas, I always ask only 2 questions. First, is this idea fun? Is it memorable? Is it something that is actually enjoyable to use and to work with? But then I always ask, can I make this thing accessible? And not only can I make it accessible with like a larger type or anything like that, but can I make it accessible to blind people? And I can often answer the fun part with yes, but often I cannot answer the accessibility part with yes, so that's often a no. And if either one of those 2 questions is a no, then I will scrap the idea and continue with the next one. And this is basically also what happened with Art of Fauna in the beginning. So this is, again, how the first prototype basically looked like. A very simple image, split into lines, and you have to put that back together. And even though it was simple, I immediately felt like there is something interesting there and something fun there and memorable there. But I could really not see how I could make this accessible to blind people. Like, how do you make a visual puzzle game accessible to blind people? So I had to put the whole project on hold for a couple of months until I walked into a nature reserve and saw something like this. So if you go to a park or a nature reserve, you sometimes get signs like these, where you get an image of an animal and a little description and some facts about the animal. And seeing this really made click in my head and showed me a way to solve my accessibility problem. And I went home and implemented it, and the solution to my accessibility problem is here. It's on that little right button in the top right corner. because if you click that button, it flips from an image site to a text site. So now you don't have an image-based puzzler anymore. You have a puzzler that is really focused on the text. And that has the huge benefit that somebody who is blind can use voiceover to read out those different portions of the text and solve the puzzle through that. And that really solved my accessibility problem, so I could continue working on this thing. But doing this not only made a huge difference for accessibility, it changed the whole basic concept of the app. It gave the whole thing educational spin and something more interesting that really everybody enjoyed and not only blind users. But accessibility runs so much deeper in Art of Fauna. Actually, the very first screen that you're ever going to see in the app is an accessibility screen, which allows you to adjust several settings there. And there are many reasons why you should do something like that in your apps. First of all, it shows to the user immediately whenever you start your app that you care about accessibility and that accessibility is dear to you and that you care about your users. But also, very importantly, it makes your onboarding accessible. Like I see so many apps that have some accessibility settings, but you can only access them after you finish the onboarding. And some people might not even be able to finish your onboarding without those accessibility settings. And if you have them right there on the very first screen, you make their experience more enjoyable and for some people maybe even possible. So having the accessibility settings there can really make a difference for certain people. But also, it makes your accessibility features more discoverable to people who might not think that they need accessibility features in the first place. And a great example for that are the phobia settings in Art of Fauna. So I told you before that the animals in the pictures were made for scientific research, so they are very realistically drawn. And many people are that scared of spiders and snakes and insects and stuff like that. So Art of Fauna has a setting where you can turn off spiders and snakes, and those puzzles are automatically skipped. So you will never ever see a spider, for example, in the app. But if you then go to the menu and click on it, you always get a little warning that warns you before the image is shown to you. And this is a very, very simple thing to implement for Art of Fauna, but it made a huge difference. People who have those phobias would probably never go into the accessibility settings to actually search for them, but having them on the very first screen made that discoverable and made the app a much more pleasant experience for them from the get-go. And it meant a lot also for my business because many of those people go to the App Store and then write very nice reviews just because of the accessibility settings. Like these users thanked me for letting them block certain animals like spiders and insects. And I have a lot of those reviews. So to sum all of this up, really don't underestimate the power of accessibility. People often think of accessibility of being something for just a tiny portion of your users, but in reality, accessibility is so much more. Accessibility can make your experience better for everybody and will make your experience better for everybody. But I just talked about ratings and reviews, and Art of Fauna now over the last couple of months that it has been released to the App Store got a lot of ratings and reviews. It now stands at 17,000 App Store ratings and has an average rating of 4.9 out of 5 stars. And at least in the indie scene, that's a lot, and that's a very high rating. And I get a lot of questions from many of my fellow indie developers, like how I get so many ratings and such a high score. And there are multiple answers to this question. Like, first of all, I chose a very good point in the app where I show my review dialogue, which is like after puzzle 7, when you first completed your little bit more difficult puzzle, you feel very good about yourself that you have solved that puzzle. So I will show your review dialogue, and it's very likely that you give me a high score if you just finished a very difficult level. But also, I try to reply to emails that I get quickly and with care. It can really make a huge difference if you show your users, when they are very frustrated with your app or very angry, that a human replies to them and that a human cares about their problem and cares about their feelings and giving them a room to vent about their angriness. And it can diffuse such a situation where somebody's super angry very easily by showing them that you're a human, you care about them, and that can flip a user that is very angry to be one of the kindest and nicest users. And then I also try to make my mail support easy and pleasant for the user. And to explain that a little bit more, I turn to another app that I built last year, which is Pocket Shelf. And Pocket Shelf is a little reading tracker app, and the reading tracker just means you track what you're currently reading as a book. And so one of the first things that you have to do in a reading tracker app is to add more books to your app. And sometimes this can be very frustrating, because if it's a very new book or a book which has a very weird edition, then our database just doesn't have an entry for the book, so the result can't be found. But in that situation, we immediately show to the user, is this result unexpected to you? You can contact us. They tap on that, we get an email, we get all the information of what the user couldn't be found, and that is processed very quickly. The new database entry for them is created, and we can immediately reply to them, hey, we fixed your problem, and turn a very frustrating user moment in a very pleasant support experience. And something similar is done in Fauna. So Fauna has a lot of app icons of all kinds of different animals, and those app icons don't cover all of your favorite animals. So some people still want certain app icons. So they have a little button down here to request an app icon, write me an email. I then can use my historical images again. It is fairly easy to make an app icon out of those things, and then reply to the user that I just added a new app icon for them. And whenever I reply to a user with such a positive thing that I solved the problem or added an app icon, I always throw in something like this. P.S. If you like Fauna, it would be awesome if you could leave a review on the App Store, because you just created a very pleasant, very positive moment for the user, so they are very highly likely to give you a positive review, especially if you explain to them why it's important. Like I often throw in something that helps a lot with getting noticed by other users, because good reviews increase your search ranking, and that can be very impactful for your business. And like I think 1 day ago, I got one email back from a user, and he immediately said, I submitted a review, 5 stars, of course, as soon as I received the email. So it's a very good thing and a very easy thing to throw in something like this, that into your responses to the users, and they will immediately give you more reviews. But all of this was more focused towards getting more reviews and not towards remaining a high score. And for this, I have one major advice, which is if you get reviews on the App Store, honestly reply to them and also quickly reply to them. Because like everybody else, I get a lot of those reviews where people just complain about the pricing, complain that not everything is free, and those are my worst reviews on the App Store. And if I get reviews like these, I immediately answer to them, and I answer with several things to the user. So first, I show to the user that I am a caring human. I understand the user. I understand that not everybody is able to buy the full version of an app. But then I also explain why the app costs money. I'm a human. I have to pay my bills. I have to survive somehow. So that's why I ask for money in the app. But I also explain to them why I don't do advertisement, because advertisement often leads to the data of the user being sold. And I say just plainly that this is against the ethics of this app. And then I also explain to them what the damage of a one-star review is. That this decreases my search ranking, which can lead to fewer downloads and can also lead to me earning less money and has a direct impact of me being an indie developer. And if I explain this honestly to the user and show that, again, that I care about them, 50% of my one-star reviews are deleted or turned into 5-star reviews. And I often even get emails from users who then afterwards just say that they are totally sorry that they ever wrote a 1-star review for me just because I explained to them what a damage or a 1-star review does. So to sum this up, be honest and be human when replying to your users. I told you before that I'm an indie developer, and I use this thing of being indie as an advantage wherever I can. And for example, I do this on my paywall. Many people currently try to enhance their paywall with methods of like trapping the user in the paywall, or hiding the closing button, or having a little timer for to close the paywall and stuff like that. I don't do anything of that. Instead, if you go to my paywall and scroll through it, I show my face there. I show them that, tell them that I'm an indie developer. I am a small team. It's basically just me doing this app. And I show the face to them. And people are much more willingly to accept a smaller feature set and a smaller, or are also more willingly to pay for your app if you show that you're a small team that cares, that than if you are a huge corporation. So that's why I use my indie advantage here. But also, as an indie developer, I can care about things that I really care about. I don't have to justify things to management or to investors or something like that, because I'm an indie and I can just basically do whatever I like. And one example where we took advantage of that was for Pocket Shelf. We could throw ourselves for Pocket Shelf immediately onto Liquid Glass and build the whole app around that, but we could also do decisions like using foundation models and use all the fancy new technologies just because we wanted to, and not because anybody forced us to do it. And that had the huge advantage that in the end, Pocket Shelf also got featured by Apple for doing stuff like that during the launch of iOS 26. And for Art of Fauna, I always do updates around events, especially Global Accessibility Awareness Day and Earth Day are two events where I can just do updates about, not because anybody tells me to do that, just because I want to do that and I care about those events. And in the end, this can again have a positive business impact. So for Global Accessibility Awareness Day, I got featured on the App Store, and for Earth Day, I also got featured on the App Store. So if you're an indie developer, and I'm not really sure how many people are here, but if you're an indie developer, use that advantage of being indie wherever you can. And I could elaborate also using that on marketing and stuff like that, but there's a great other talk about this from Frederick Riedel. Being indie is not always easy. It's a huge dream of many developers, but it can also have a huge impact on you. There's a wonderful article you can read about this, which is written by Daniela, about if you're an indie, you have to figure things out alone. You often feel overwhelmed and you feel lonely. Many of those things can be counteracted if you use an AI to help you fix certain things in your code and get more productive. But the feeling of loneliness is a real thing as of being an indie. And I do a couple of things to counteract that over the year. So I go to conferences like this and meet people and talk to the people and just enjoy the community. Over the last year, I think I was at 8 different conferences, met people all over the world, chatted with them, and just got inspired by all those lovely people. that's also how I met Frank, with whom I built Pocket Shelf, which you saw earlier in the app, in the presentation. But I also play around with a lot of indie apps to get inspired and because I care and I am very interested in all the great work these lovely people do. And then I give a lot of feedback to those people about their indie apps. It's so much feedback at times that people find it very annoying how much feedback I give to them. A friend of mine even recently suggested that we could drive a competitor crazy by just making me use their app, because they will eventually give up by the flood of feedback they will get from myself. But by giving the feedback to other people, I also receive a lot of feedback. So for example, in Art of Flora, which is the follow-up from Art of Fauna, I have this little view which has a little map that looks like a physical map that you can open up, but it still interacts like a MapKit view. And it's a very nice component, it's a very nice thing, and this was not made by myself. The idea for that came from a friend of mine, which is Sophia, and the code for that came from another friend of mine, which is Seb. But then I also, over the year, post a lot about other indies. Not because I want anything in return, just because I care about the other indie apps, and I want to share all my discoveries about those indie apps on social media and with friends. But when it came to the launch of Art of Fauna, many of those people then returned the favor. They posted about the app all over social media, they gave me very nice reviews, and that was not only helpful for me as a business, because it spread the word about my new app, it also gave me a huge motivational boost to continue working there. So care about other people, and in the end, they will care about you. And as a last point in this presentation, I wanted to take a moment talking about caring about myself. Because I told you before at the beginning of this presentation that I quit my day job because I wanted to focus on Art of Fauna, but this is only half of the story. I did work on all of my indie apps on the side while working full-time at my job, and that often led to me neglecting my friends, neglecting myself, neglecting everything around me, and caused a lot of stress, even caused health issues in the end. So taking the jump of going full indie also was a way of learning to care about myself. And I actually discovered that I get my best ideas when taking breaks and when caring about myself. So right now, I do a lot of things like playing games on my Nintendo Switch. Every time I'm at conferences like this, I walk around the city and explore it and take like 1 or 2 more days to get to know the people and get to know the culture of a certain place. And then I drink a lot of coffee, as my friends can really say. And 2 recent examples of what it really meant for my project of taking care of myself was that for once, all of the sound effects in Art of Fauna were just inspired by me playing Switch, a completely different game, historical murder mystery game, which has absolutely nothing to do with Art of Fauna, but it inspired me to create those sound effects. But also, the artist gallery in Art of Flora was directly inspired by me going to a museum and seeing the arrangement of pictures in that museum. So taking breaks can really help you get a new perspective on all of your projects. So to sum this all up, we talked a lot about caring today, and I want to leave you with one final piece of advice, which is that if you care a bit more, you might not only find success with your projects, you will also be happy doing so. And with that, I say thank you very much for listening. I have a lot of stickers and pins with me, so if anybody wants a sticker or a pin, just approach me later. Yeah, and if you have any questions, just let me know.